Cheating in video games is usually pretty universally frowned upon. Aside from the people doing the cheating, it's pretty agreed upon that it ruins the experience for everyone else. But Pokemon is a rare exception. The cheating taking place in the game of Pokemon is often not even labeled as cheating. It has other terms such as genning, and unlike most games, the community will often deem it as okay. I'm sure most of you have gotten this rundown before, but for those of you that don't know, let me explain how it works in Pokemon. In Pokemon, people don't cheat in the normal fashion you'd see in other games. You don't cheat in the ways of having impossible stats or moves or anything that would make the game unplayable for someone else. It has more to do with how the Pokemon is obtained instead of their actual function. Players will use a third-party software like PKHex to build their Pokemon exactly how they want them to be, like stats, moves, natures, or items. The function of the Pokemon is still identical to that of a Pokemon that was obtained using legitimate means. Although there's a lot of arguments to be made for and against the use of these Pokemon in competitive play, let me just say this. I don't care. My philosophy has always been the same. If you want to gen your Pokemon, do it. But if you get caught, deal with it. I am entirely neutral, though I understand the arguments against it, such as the time you save. Someone who gens their Pokemon will of course have an advantage when they get hundreds of hours of extra practice. But to an extent, you also have to agree that building a competitive team is completely ridiculous. I want you to picture this. You're playing a racing game, and you're doing really well. You're climbing the leaderboards with your times and getting better every single day, until suddenly, you can't improve anymore. And you discover that everyone else above you on the leaderboards are using a different car. A car that is far superior to yours. You might be thinking, oh, I should switch to that one. But that car is not available in your game. You see, that car was part of the DLC in the previous game. So if you want that car, you have to buy that game and the DLC, and then you have to finish the DLC to unlock it and transfer it back to the new game. Congratulations! That's how you get Urshifu. That's how you get Calyrex. That's how you get Regieleki. Although that is just one example and I could sit here and debate all day about whether it's right or wrong, this video is a curveball. This video is not about VGC or competitive play. You see, I have a theory. Pokemon does not have a problem with cheating. Pokemon has a problem with allowing people to cheat. You might think genning is either good or bad, but like my ex-girlfriend used to say, it's not black and white. And I decided to test my theory by running a series of tests. I am going to excessively use the online features within the game, and I'm going to see just how much it actually affects my experience of the game. This test is not a definitive answer, so don't go blasting it like it's science. This is only from my perspective, and you're free to do it yourself, but I recommend you don't. The only feature that I won't check out is the Union Circle, because it's only for friends and the code 696969 didn't work. And I also won't be playing ranked. Sword and Shield had a great feature, where you could inspect the opposing team after the match, which they removed from the game. So the first thing I decided to do was wonder trades, or surprise trades. And I decided to do 120 trades, so 4 boxes of Pokemon. Going into this, my thought was, I wonder how long it's going to take until I am given an illegitimate Pokemon. After the first box, I thought, how many trades can I do without getting one? I was trading at all hours of the day. In the morning, middle of the day, I was even trading in the middle of the night. And after 120 surprise trades, I received 37 illegitimate Pokemon, meaning almost 31%. But I also decided to go further and do 120 surprise trades on Pokemon Sword and Shield. I was expecting the rate of gen Pokemon to go down, mainly because I'd assumed the majority of trade bots had already moved on to Pokemon Scarlet and Violet a long time ago. After 120 trades, I received 12 gen Pokemon, so at least it dropped to 10%. I also did 120 trades on Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, and I found nothing, which I honestly expected. People setting up trade bots for BDSP would sound sort of concerning. I also tried bringing these gen Pokemon online, only to discover that there's something wrong with the Pokemon. Why tradable? I usually don't swear on this channel, but I'll give myself a pass. What in the Blueberry Academy fuck is this? The game can recognize that there is something wrong with my Pokemon. Then why the hell is it being traded to me in the first place? I know for a fact that all 120 Pokemon I traded were not only legit, but they could be used online. Am I as a player not entitled to receive the same thing? Why would I be punished for someone else being a dumbass? I cannot stress this enough. I'm not saying that I have a problem with people doing this. this. Because if something is broken in a video game, people are going to use it or do it. And in the case of Pokemon, the game in itself is what's broken. So of course people are going to take advantage of it. And you deserve better. So with 30% of the trades being illegitimate, we move on to the raids. Surely, people aren't going to use PokemonGGs.com, the shiny Iron Hands online. But before we do that, let's quickly check out Pokemon Home. Because if you open Pokemon Home and check out the news section, they have a post regarding the use of Gent Pokemon. And I'm gonna read it to you. Thank you very much for the continued support of the Pokemon series. We are aware that some users are playing the games in the Pokemon main series, as well as Pokemon Home, with illegitimately modified data. Using altered data cause issues that makes the games and apps behave irregularly. Users who engage in behavior that negatively affects other users, such as trading illegitimately modified Pokemon, or are otherwise found to be using Pokemon Home in an inappropriate way, will be dealt with in the ways outlined below. Restrictions of online play in the Pokemon main series games. Restriction of trading features in the mobile device version of Pokemon Home. Suspension of both the Nintendo Switch version and the mobile device version of Pokemon Home. Restriction of the transportation of Pokemon from Pokemon Bank to Pokemon Home. I mean, wow, that sounds pretty serious. Especially for Pokemon. Just a quick question. Does anyone want a Fluttermane? I have like 25 of these ready to go. Another question. Do you know anyone who's ever been banned on Pokemon Home? I sure don't. As a matter of fact, I scoured the internet to find someone. Anyone, even if they were lying. Aside from this one Reddit post from 3 years ago, and 4 years ago when content creators who openly distributed Gen Pokemon were being targeted. So I 100% question everything about this post. And even if it was true and people are getting banned, if you're using the GTS or the Wonder Box, you are the one who has to deal with it. There's no compensation. There's no, oh, we're sorry this happened to you. PokemonGGs.com is yours now. Just deal with it. But let's get into the raids. I decided to do 100 raids. I was going to shoot for 120, and honestly, I probably did 120. Because I forgot how poorly optimized this stuff is. My game crashed non-stop. And most of the time, it wouldn't even tell me that it crashed. I just had to sit there and stare at Wu Qian's stupid face for a solid 10 minutes without anything happening. I was better off going for the random raid option, which wasn't optimal. But to my surprise, and I promise this was a surprise, after 100 raids, 32 of them contained illegitimate Pokemon. If you're wondering how I did this, you can see the nicknames of your teammates. That means the percentage of people using Gen Pokemon didn't go down, it went up to 32%. I also encountered a couple of raid bots, both in Scarlet and Violet and Sword and Shield, which basically is just free shiny Pokemon. So you do with that information what you will. And finally, we have link battles. Just like the raids, I'm only counting those with the nickname, so the number of Gen Pokemon is probably higher. But I'm only going to go off of what I can prove. I did 100 battles, and I did 25 link battle singles, 25 link battle doubles, and the same thing for the battle stadium. And for double battles, my best bet ended up being Attack Form Deoxys with Psychic Terrain and Expanding Force. Good news, I hit harder than a 2004 Toyota Prius. Bad news, an Astonish from Lotad knocks my chromosomes apart. The reality ended up being the experience was way worse than the amount of Gen Pokemon I found. It happened a total of 8 times in 100 battles. I guess the entire point of this video is that competitive play such as VGC really only makes up a fraction of what is going on in the game. And it's going to affect you as a player even if you want to or not. This has been going on in Pokemon for over a decade, and the truth is, Pokemon doesn't care. They only care if people see it in their live streams because it makes them look bad. Pokemon is a game unlike any others. In most games, if you cheat online, you would receive consequences for your actions, such as bans, shadow bans, doing time in the timeout corner, where Pokemon only gives you a fake promise of doing so. When I've shared my opinion on Gen Pokemon before, one thing I've heard people say is that it's not a rule unless someone is actually enforcing it. And you're right. People say that Pokemon Champions is going to be better, and I do hope so. But is it? Let's say Pokemon Champions fixes the problems within the VGC. And when I say fix the problem, I'm not just talking about stopping people from genning, but also help those who gen by giving them a reason not to do so. Is it still okay to completely ignore the things that are happening in the other games that the casual players have to deal with? This is not my typical style of content, but I make videos on things that I find interesting. And I hope you enjoyed my suffering. Until we meet again.